Hello, Colin. How are you?
Hey, Rose, doing great.
Great. So listen, thank you very much for joining me today. We've been working on Juvenescence and the longevity project now for over 2 years. And we've come a long way, but I thought it'd be really interesting for people to hear about the kind of journey that you've embarked on and where we think it's going. So I want to start with a very famous quote from one of your founders, Jim Mellon. He said that the longevity market is in the dial-up phase of the internet, which sounds incredibly promising. And clearly you were intrigued by that because you decided to join Greg and Jim and Declan on that journey. So tell me a little bit about that. Why did you decide to join? Why do you think it is actually in that phase? And where do you think it's going in maybe the next year or two?
Yeah, I mean, Jim Mellon's made his career by being a prognosticator of megatrends, and he's been very, very, very successful at it. So here we're off on another one. And Greg Bailey, Deck Dugan, our other two founders, about 5 years ago, started to see the shape of where this whole longevity market was going. I joined about 2 years ago as well. So it really, the longevity market starts back at the point where we map the human genome, which is about 15 years ago, give or take. Back at that time, we started to look at biology differently in some ways. We started to study the way the body works at a cellular level. We had had massive advances in science, in diagnostics and biomarkers, and then you brought in artificial intelligence and big data sets. And suddenly, instead of thinking about what was happening as we age as a function of diseases, we started to look at aging really through the lens of just this longitudinal deterioration that happens as we age at the cellular level. And what's exciting about it is about that same time, we started to look at different types of treatments. In fact, different types of interventions that could help to slow, prevent, or even reverse some of the foundational issues of aging. It sounds a little sci-fi, but it's actually reality right now. And maybe I could share with you one example out of our business that would help to bring it to life.
You should absolutely share the one example that always makes my hair stand on end whenever you talk about it.
Yeah, it's a little uncanny, but one of our portfolio companies is a company called Ligenesis. It's started by a couple of professors out of the University of Pittsburgh, and they have been studying the cellular regeneration. So how to regrow tissues, or in their case, how to regrow organs. They have actually discovered that you can regrow full organs. In their case, they're growing livers right now, healthy, functional livers out of our lymph nodes. And so the change in the potential of treatment, where instead of when you have a failing liver, needing to do a full organ transplant, instead you're implanting basically a section of a liver with stem cells in your lymph nodes, and you're growing a fully functional liver. And the fact that that's going to go into a clinical study in human beings this year, with the FDA accelerated approval, is a bit mind-blowing. And it's a good example of the kind of advances around longevity and healthy aging that we're seeing across multiple different areas.
Yeah, and Greg always talks about growing new limbs.
Yes.
And actually the fact that your body has the ability to grow a new thing up until the age of 5 and then forgets how to do that, and this like enables all of that to happen. It is, I think in your word, it is mind-blowing. But every new emerging market, in my experience, and it certainly was true of the internet back in the day, has some challenges. It has some kind of headwinds that it faces. What do you think are the challenges that they're going to get in the way of making this come to market faster?
Right. So look, as Mellon said, dial-up phase of the internet, we're early. And so hard to predict exactly what's going to come at us. But there's a bunch of different typical innovation challenges. How's the science going to happen? How are the inventors going to happen? And then there's some that probably the biggest, that's the headwind or the friction area, is the mindset challenge. I've spent my entire career in healthcare. And the reality of healthcare is that it lives on a sick treat paradigm. Typically, healthcare is geared to look for illness and then to treat that illness. And every company I've worked with in healthcare, that's the way we've made our money. That's the way we focus our R&D. That's just the way it's set up. If you take that type of mindset into this field of longevity, you miss the whole market. The reality is longevity is about growing older, healthier. And so to do this well, you have to think about it longitudinally. You have to think about the idea that what we're doing is we're going to intervene to stimulate the body's own capacity to rejuvenate itself. And when you take those kinds of steps in, you start to think about different types of therapies, even in the case of my division, natural consumer therapies that can be incredibly efficacious, but might not normally show up on the typical sick treat paradigm mind.
Can we dig into that? Because when you first came to Chapter Co, we were surprised to know that there was a consumer division that was part of this, this huge, thing that was going to market. And I thought about Google, Calico. We looked at a lot of your competitors. None of them had consumer divisions. You are really the only company that was doing that. Why was that? And obviously they went after you to bring you in because you'd run. You were the CEO of these companies. You'd run like big divisions at J&J. Why did you decide that the consumer division was such an important part of bringing this to market?
It's a great question. I mean, longevity is now being a focus of companies and academia across some of the top institutions in the world, right? Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Oxford all have professors and spin out companies going after this space. This was one of the questions that my own wife asked me when I stepped into this, like, why are you going after this? You're not a scientist. I think it's important to start with this market is happening today. Like, think of longevity as a tidal wave coming at us. It's here. In fact, the World Economic Forum announced a couple years ago that kids born this time right now in the US, about 50% of the kids born today are going to live to 105 years old. So I don't know about you, but I tended to think of my own life expectancy as like 80. It's now 25 years more for half of our population as we speak. So as a result, we at Juvenescence really wanted to speed up the time to market. And we recognized that what we needed to do to pull that off was to do multiple shots on goal, different ways of creating efficacious therapies we could bring in. And one of the biggest areas that we started to look at was the area of natural and nutritional therapy, which are the fundamentals of things like supplements and functional foods. And I came in to build a team that was focused on not launching something over 20 years, but launching something over 2 years, still with all the right clinical support, all the right areas. And we're doing it. We have a division focused on therapies that are like traditional medications and regenerative therapies. We have a division focused on artificial intelligence and data science. And we have our division that's focused on consumer. We call my division JuvLife.
Right. I remember when you first came into the company with Greg. First of all, it's very rare to work on a business like this. This is truly life changing, life enhancing, however we want to talk about it. So that is challenging and terrifying and exciting, but it's even more rare to actually work with the founders of a company who have a kind of very clear vision about what they want to do and where they want to take it. And it was a big challenge. It was like, how do we take this huge idea and that is kind of lives, 5-6 years into the future, but also lives now, and kind of create a business and a brand out of it that everyone can get excited about.
Yeah, look, a lot of companies get 20 years into their history before they start to talk about their purpose and before they start to think about their real core strategy. When I joined, I was quite happy that the founders let me go look for an agency like Co-Collective, because we knew this was our biggest challenge, how to create a brand and create a trust mark around this space that people could grab hold of and could understand. And what I was excited about, Rose, was the reputation that you and your team have built at Co-Collective and working with folks like YouTube and Uber and nonprofits to sort of shape this. And why don't you share a little bit of some of what we were doing together in our journey?
Yeah, I mean, you use the word trust, Mark, and I think that's an important word, because in this field, if you don't have the trust of the people you're engaging, you have nothing, right? I mean, you've got to get the trust of the scientists that you're bringing on board. You have to have the trust of the investors who are going to help build out the company. And last but not least, the kind of average person on the street for whom this stuff is still pretty, like, as you said, it's still kind of science fiction for much of it. And so, for us, we were used to coming up with great stories and brand positions for companies. This needed something that was incredibly powerful. And I think one of the things we talk about is this poet, Muriel Rukeyser, who says that the universe is made up of stories, not of atoms. And it's particularly true in this case. I mean, first and foremost, great stories have 4 characteristics. A protagonist, juvenescence is that protagonist. We've already talked a lot about all the different kinds of things you're doing in the world. The second thing they have is they're really kind of clear about the world they're doing business in, the stage, and the sick treat paradigm is ripe for disruption, right? So it's a place where we can really kind of make our mark and break through. But I think the third and fourth things were particularly important in this case, right? The third thing is you've got to know who you want to participate in the story. You need to bring people along. They have to join you on this. This is not something you do to them. This is something that they want to come along on. And I think last but not least, you've got to have a clear enemy. There is nothing more galvanizing than your enemy, kind of knowing the dragon that you're trying to slay.
Yeah, tell us about dragon slaying, my favorite topic.
Dragon slaying. So, when you dragon slaying, as I said, is very galvanizing. It's the thing that gets the most energy. It kind of creates the tension. The first time we started thinking about who the enemy was, we all talked about the fact that it was just age itself. And I think we quickly understood that actually inevitable decline was not something that most people had necessarily bought into or believed in. The people that we were most interested in attracting realized that actually they started to take control of that to some degree. The problem they had was ageism.
Yeah.
That around, we had built an entire society around like, the fountain of youth. And the idea that somehow like you could age and age well and be healthy and have a second career and not have to retire at the age of 65. Society had put all of those things in place and they just wanted to break them down. So ageism was a dragon that will continue to try and slay.
Good on you. Talk about our target audience a little bit, Rose.
Well, so I think I just started talking about them a little bit. I mean, again, when we started talking to them, baby boomers have basically challenged pretty much everything that's been put in front of them. They've changed the rules, right, all along. And
rock and roll.
One of those things, yeah. And one of those things that they want to change. And for them, the idea of living to 150 was kind of not that compelling. Actually, what they wanted to do was live a little longer, but live better, be healthier in that, so that they could spend more time with their family, think about those second careers, education, all of that stuff. For them, it was getting more out of a lifetime. And we call them the lifetime optimizers, which is exactly what they are. And when we think about them, when we talk to them, we really wanted to help them kind of reimagine what it meant to kind of get old. We talked about reimagining a lifetime as the kind of perfect encapsulation of what that looked like.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that as a strategic tagline, Reimagine a Lifetime did a great job. And I was particularly happy once we rolled off of building this quest, this strategy for our company, we started doing things like this, right? Creating our hand of life, which is our logo. It's just such an obvious manifestation of this strategy. And it sort of talks to this idea that like we're here, like we Juvenescence are here, we as humanity are here. And this whole area of longevity is going to be here for a long period of time. We hope that this logo will endure for that. It looks pretty good when you put it on a package, yeah. Right? It really stands up quite a bit.
And that is Metabolic Switch, right? Which is the first consumer product you're bringing to market. And why did you decide that that should be the first product, the first representation of what Juvenescence should be in the world?
Yeah, so Metabolic Switch is the first one. It's going to be out like hopefully momentarily. It's been a real pleasure to work on because Metabolic switch is a ketone ester. It focuses on probably one of the areas of healthy aging and longevity that has been the most studied since people started studying this space. It's really focused on fasting. So when we fast, whether it's intermittent fasting or longer term fasting, one of the things we're doing is we're putting our bodies into ketosis, where actually what happens is your liver starts to, instead of using glucose and carbs, it turns to your fat stores and it converts those into energy, into fuel. And what happens when you use ketones as opposed to glucose or carbs to fuel your body is, frankly, according to the science, pretty magical. It's got incredible impact on metabolic health. It obviously has positive impact on weight management. That's why everybody knows the keto diet. But beyond that, it's been able to demonstrate that it has positive impact on blood glucose control, on cardio control, on even cognitive function. So, you know, our body wants to be in ketosis every once in a while. And basically what metabolic switch does is it's ketosis in a bottle. It's ketones that you can consume each day, and it'll put you into ketosis automatically for 5 hours, and good things will happen. And there's a lot more of these to come. We've got three or four additional ones.
So that, I think what's interesting about that is it kind of lays the foundation and starts to educate people on how they can kind of, you know, take control of the aging process. And I know your other products are too. Quickly, I know you have some other things that you're investing in.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a diversified biotech company. So we have, you know, dozens of shots on goal right now. We've got some new medications that we're in the process of taking into clinical studies. I mentioned like Genesis. We have other regenerative programs that we're working on. My team has got currently 4 major compounds under development, and we expect to have, you know, close to a dozen by the time we're done. We expect to be doing this for decades. You know, we think of ourselves as potentially the Johnson & Johnson of aging over time. And it's a massive market. For me, it's so exciting to be part of this because I think we're going to be talking about it for generations. Certainly, it's the biggest mega trend over the next 50 years that we think is going to hit healthcare.
Yeah. Well, look, professionally, it's been a joy to be on this journey with you. But personally, I feel like I'm learning every day how I can live longer and healthier. So listen, thank you very much, Colin. I've really enjoyed the chat and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.